Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I'm about to feed my Cymbidiums, well, water and feed my Cymbidiums. So I thought I'd just plonk the camera in the doorway. It's set quite high up and in the doorway because these are big plants basically, so I don't need to be close to the camera. So I shall be sort of working here and either putting plants back or dumping them up in that corner out the way temporarily. Now these have to be done in a certain order. First of all, there's a possibly virused item, which is always last. Once I've watered it, any remaining water gets discarded. I don't allow the run through to go into other plants in case. In addition to that, I've got one that hasn't been repotted yet, and it's in a fibrous type, peaty type stuff. And when I water it, a lot of muck comes out. So that goes second to last. But apart from that, the rest have all been repotted by me. They're in my media, so they can go in any order. We'll just have a look and see what's going on. I'll start off with the three on the floor. These are the ones least likely to have spikes at this time of year. Ooh. And this is the one with the fibrous media, so I shall immediately put that to one side because that's not getting done yet. That'll get done later. So that leaves these two. Glad when these are outside. Right, so this is Jamie Red, and at the moment this is maturing last year's growths, and that's all it's doing. There's no sign of any spikes. This was a late bloomer, this was in bloom midsummer, yeah? So I would suspect the spikes will begin as a response to the lengthening day lengths on this type of Cymbidium. That's a guess, but I don't believe it's going to have anything to do with the reducing temperatures at night in mid to late summer that the wintering and early spring bloomers do. So this has got a different sort of trigger mechanism, I suspect, and it's highly likely to be the increase in day lengths and possibly temperatures. We shall find out, but at the moment it's maturing the two growths that it grew last year. Maturing, not matured. Therefore, there is still some growing going on. So it is getting fed. Whoops. That held a lot of that water. Must have been quite dry. This is small bark perlite mainly. I think there might be some grow stones in there, and a mass of roots, hopefully. As a consequence, in a deep pot, it takes quite a while for the water to drain through. So I do actually wait a fair time until we get down to a trickle. That will soak back up anyway, so don't worry too much about that. So that's that one. Oh, oh, blow me. They do surprise you, don't they, when you're not watching? I wasn't expecting a spike on that, I must admit. Right, so this is Tiger Tail. This is, to all intents and purposes, a miniature, because this is the height of the plant. It's got many pseudobulbs. It currently has a spike sticking out the top, and I've just seen a spike there as well, and another one there. That's three. Looks like a possible one here. So at least three spikes on here. And they're going to be a succession, because obviously this one here will be open first, and I must remember to get these staked. There's no need to do it just yet, there's no weight in the buds, but if you leave them too long and they arch over, when you try and straighten them up, it is possible to snap the spike, and then that's that year's spike gone, and you have to wait for another year. So anyway, this is again my idea of, is the plant growing something? That's my decision to feed or not. And yes, it's growing something. It's growing spikes. Now ideally, a low nitrogen feed would probably be more appropriate if I had one. And I haven't, so I can't. But I will be getting some. And okay, it's going to mean that future watering runs are going to need 2 lots of feed. Unless I'm doing a flush run, in which case I get off lightly. But yes, I'm going to need, because you know, I've got lots of different types of orchids. They'll all be at different stages. Some won't be growing, some will be in a form of rest, possibly just flowered and not started new growths yet, so just sitting around not doing much. They don't need any feed, or very, very light feed at best. And then you've got those that are growing things, they need their nitrogen feed, unless the one thing that they're growing is spikes and buds and stuff, in which case they ought to have a lower nitrogen feed. It has an effect, and the effect it has is beneficial. It's not just, you know, because somebody in a book said, if you reduce the nitrogen at the point the spikes start, what you actually get is shorter spikes, buds closer together, and a better colour. So it is worth doing. Now I wonder how tall that spike's going to get. This is the problem I've got. The height of the shelf dictates the height of the stake that I can use. So I can't use really tall stakes because the pot won't go back under the shelf. But at the moment it's arching over. I might even let these arch. As I said, there's 2 progressing and another 1 or 2 starting, so it's going to have blooms for some time. I think they lasted quite a while as well. So yeah, we won't bother staking it yet. We'll just put where I can see there's 3 spikes close together around that side with the longer spike. And then there's something starting to grow here, which could be another spike. More likely to be a spike than a growth this time of year. So that's that one. And that was Tiger Tail. I think I said. If I didn't, I have now. Oh. That's the problem, is it involves bending. You know, I've got to get down here and I've got to get up again. But at the moment my knees still work. Now first thing in the morning they complain, but they still work. They complain coming down the stairs. You know, they send signals to your brain that goes ouch, 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 and you hold on to both rails coming down the stairs. But walking about a bit, it sort of settles down. I can still crouch down there and get up again without hanging on to something. That's good, because if I had to hang on to something to get back up, I'm stuffed. Because if I try and grab hold of anything in here and pull my weight up, I will pull it over. So hopefully that day is a long way off. It's not here yet. Anyway, so that's those 2. Those go back in here. Up near the glass. And then we do these 2 over here. These are both in bloom, but I've repotted these. Now these are not doing much. Technically they're not growing anything. They're merely supporting the flower spikes. There's no... Oh, hang on, he says. They love making me out a porky pie teller, don't they? Right down in there. Something is starting to grow. Now that is highly likely to be this year's growth, because the spike is mature and the buds are open. It's unlikely to be another spike on the same bulb that far behind this one. It's far more likely to be a new growth. And on a 2 bulb plant, the chances are there will be only one new growth. Might be two, but as there is a new growth starting, I'm happy that this gets some feed. It's going to need it to push that growth on. And if the plant, in its total energy, feels that there's a bit of excess, it's more likely to put up a second growth, even though it's only got 2 bulbs. But it won't do it if it's starved. It'll make do with one, and that might not be a very good one. You've got to watch what you're up to. Now this is we've established is Cymbidium copper, despite the fact the blooms are the wrong colour. And the likelihood of the wrong colour is insufficient and incorrect feeding and watering during the season last year, and not enough light. Now, not all Cymbidiums have got this business of the colour being dependent on the light. Some of them just come out the same colour virtually whatever you do, except for growing them in a dark cupboard perhaps. So this is the other copper, and this was the larger piece. And again, we've got a growth here that's maturing, not very big bulb on it. And we've got another one here that's maturing, and behind it is a new growth, which is probably another new growth actually. It won't be a spike, I doubt, again. For the same reason, this one's matured its spike. Blooms are open. Strangely enough, these colours have deepened since they first opened, but it's still not the proper colour. But yes, so it's growing something and maturing something, so it will need the feed. Oh, before somebody asks, I suppose I better explain what's in there. What's in there is unknown. Unknown. I'll explain. There was water left over from what I did yesterday, and I didn't want to waste it. Yeah? So that was leftovers. So I knew roughly what it was. Well, I poured some more water in that from my filter jug. So that's not strictly speaking tap water, it's tap water with some of the impurities taken out. Then I put some water out of the kettle in there to warm it up. The kettle had jug water in it as well. And then I put some MSU feed in it and a bit of seaweed. Now the water at the time I put the extra jug water in was at 230, TDS of 230. And I put the jug water in to top the volume up. Then I put the MSU feed and the seaweed feed in, only a drop, and that took it up to 415, and the pH is 6.8. So that's what I ended up with. I ended up with 415 with a pH of 6.8, but the actual content, strictly speaking, is unknown, because it had a mix of all sorts in there. Right, that's these two done. These go back where they came from. We're getting there. Good job there's not many, isn't it? I'd love to have a really big greenhouse, preferably with a sunken path. Yeah? So that the roof didn't have to be too high, and then it doesn't catch the wind and all that sort of stuff. You don't get so much storm damage, and have lovely slatted benches and lovely big fan on the end that pulled in fresh air, another fan up the other end to let the heat out and all that airflow, and just grow Cymbidiums in there. I'd love to be able to do that. Because the variety and everything that you can get is absolutely superb. But they do tend to be big plants, you know. So I'm probably near my limit here. Now, this is my little miniature, and it's just opening. It's not open yet. It's the 6th today we'll be doing everything in bloom on the 8th. So come on, you need to perform. People want to see the open blooms. But yeah, it may well be open. It's got 2 days. So we'll see what it does. And again, the concept of this is growing, giving this a low nitrogen feed now would do no good at all. The spike has already grown, the buds have already formed. The time to do it is when the spike is in its infancy, so that you just knock the nitrogen off, so that what's left goes towards the spike and the buds and the colour. So yeah, once the spike gets to that stage, there's no point at all. Now, strictly speaking, I was feeding the buds to open, so I was still feeding. Now we've got the awkward one, because although I repotted this one, I filled it up too much. So when I water this, if I can hold the thing, because it weighs a ton, a lot of the bark comes off the top of the pot. Now this is just the yellow hybrid, but it's a lovely plant. It has got new growth starting round here. There's 1, 2, oh god, this weighs a ton. 2, come on, I'm sure there's more than 2. Yeah, another one there. So there's at least 3 new growths coming. There will probably be more. So it is growing new growth, so it needs feeding. The spikes with the blooms on are going to go soon, so these blooms are not long for this world. The growths that are coming that I thought might be some more spikes aren't. They're going to be growths. I'm pretty confident. I suppose that one's big enough to tell. Yes. When you get a growth that big, a couple of inches tall, near the top, you gently squeeze it. If it's a growth, it will be solid. If it's a spike, there'll be an element of hollowness about it. It won't be full. But you've need to wait for them to get to a reasonable size before you attempt to do that. God, this weighs a ton with one hand. But it's just difficult to water because, you know, I filled the pot up too much, basically. But it did have a massive root ball on it. It needed to go in. Could do with going in a deeper pot really, but I didn't have one that was wide enough. That was a deep style pot. They're not that easy to get hold of, the Cymbidium pots. The smaller ones are, but not the biggies. This is a good way to get cramp in your arm. It's holding something that is awkward and heavy. Of course it's getting heavier as I go along. Right, I'll change hands quick before I get cramp. Right, so that's that one, that's no ID, just a yellow hybrid. It just looked nice in Burnham's, and I thought it looks a reasonable plant. I like the colour of the blooms. Some people don't like the really deep yellows, I do. Bordering on, heading towards orange really, but a good deep gold yellow, I like that colour. But it depends what it goes with. Strangely enough, that colour looks good with brown. It can look good with red. I don't think it looks too good with pink. But, you know, everybody's taste is different. Right, so we've done those two and that one. We've done those two there. We now do the one that makes a mess of the water. Which is up here. It's the one we put up here first. And this one is growing things. Cymbidium hybrid. Bronzy colour. Well, whatever it's doing a lot of it. If we start here on the edge of the back of the plant, we've got a growth there. Hang on, am I in camera? Yes, we've got a growth there. We've got one there. Coming round gently. We've got one here, a nice strong one there. We've got one here. There's two coming out of the same bulb there. And another one here. So that's got a lot of whatever they are coming out. So it's growing. I doubt if they're spikes. I suspect they're going to be new growths. At the moment that's what they seem to be. And then they will hopefully bloom on those growths. But it's certainly growing things, so it'll use the feed it's getting. And this is due a repot because I want it out of this media. I don't feel in control when I don't know what's down in the pot because I've never had it out of the pot. I don't know what the media's like, I don't know what the roots are like, and I don't like it when it's like that. So we will be doing a repot on that one. I think that's the only Cymbidium that will need repotting because they all got done at the beginning of last year or when they'd finished flowering. So they've all been done what I call recently. They won't need doing this year, but this one will. That one. Yeah, that's got a lot of growths coming up. Well, if they are growths, they probably are. You notice I don't worry that much about whether they're growths or not. Once they get up to 3 or 4 inches, they'll be shouting at you saying, "Look, I'm a spike, look, I'm a growth." You don't need to worry, just wait. Be patient. Ugh. Right, that's that. And that leaves one, which is the one that is potentially virused. And that's because of the state of the leaves. But I have somebody who is quite adamant that it's more likely to be shock. But we shall see. So there's not much of a plant to look at here. But we have got open blooms. It's just opened in the last couple of days. So lovely blooms, but part of the spike has blasted and I've just noticed the buds have got aphids. So we'll see if we can knock them off. It's not thousands of them, but there might be a couple more buds are going to blast here looking at the colours. They don't look too happy there. Has that got them all? Can't see any more. Oh, there's one. So when there's only a few like that, you can just wipe them off and squish them in between your fingers. But I will say that this has bloomed. The blooms are not distorted. They are the right colour, but they're not quite as big as they have been before. So that's the assessment of the blooms. I was waiting for the blooms. If they'd had distortion and streaky marks or anything like that on them, then I'd have just accepted that it's definitely virused. But as it is, it hasn't. So we shall have to wait and see for the new growth or growths as and when they arrive and see what the leaves look like then. See if it'll actually grow clean. Because it was repotted, so we shall see. But you know, the spike has, it's all right, I'm just going to cut that leaf off. I know it seems odd that it's, because I say it's a perfectly good leaf. No, it's not. None of them are perfectly good leaves. But I'm just cutting that one off and that one. We'll leave that one for a bit. Still needs to photosynthesize. But that's just so that the, I'm going to take that one off as well. It's just so that the spike has a clear run so that we can see the blooms. As I said, this plant's survival is based on new growths. but at least we've got some blooms. So there's a better view of a more open one round here. They are attractive, very nice blooms, but you know, I can only keep this longer term if it's not virused. I can't keep on keeping it totally separate, watering it separate, you know. And I've just cut a couple of leaves off. I'm going to have to go and sterilise my scissors now, just in case. But yeah, it's difficult to tell what's going to happen next with this. The bulbs are plump, and it did manage, well, it produced 2 spikes, but all the buds blasted on the other spike, so I cut that one off. And some buds have blasted on this one. But it's managed to open some blooms, and they are clean. There's nothing wrong with them, just a little small. Right, you back where you go. Be nice to bring that up where we can see it now, but therein lies another problem. Where would you put a potentially virus plant where I can see it and it doesn't touch anything else? And quite honestly, there just isn't anywhere. So it's going to have to stay down there. So I'll only see it while I'm out here, basically. I don't want to keep picking it up and moving it all the time. You know, I could put it somewhere here so that I could see it from when I'm sitting in there. But then I'd have to keep moving it, and I'm not prepared to do that. So it'll stay where it is. I can go back in this little corner because it has to lean up against something or it falls over. So there we go. That's a look at the Cymbidiums. We've had some flowering, we've had some nice growth last year, and we've had an update on information on looking after them year on year from several places, and I will possibly get an update on that when I go on the Mathers trip, because one of their specialities is Cymbidiums, and yeah, there is a thing for you. I will be seeing Jim Durrant, who's the guy who grows them and has been doing for 30-40 years. First for McBean's and now for the Mathers Foundation. If you've got any specific questions that I can manage, ask them now under this video. You won't get your answer till April. The trip's at the beginning of April. But I will make a list, take it with me, and if the opportunity arises and I can have a chat with Jim, bearing in mind there's 20 people, they'll all want to chat with Jim, I expect. Well, not all of them, but I'll see what I can do. So any specific Cymbidium type questions, and I'll see what I can do. I can't be bothering Jim really with very, very simple basic questions like, you know, the difference between a spike and a growth, but I'll see what I can do. No guarantees, but I will be with a specialist for a couple of hours, and there will be some opportunities to chat. There have been on the previous trips, so you know, some people try and dominate and gobble somebody's time. They don't appreciate that perhaps other people might want to have a chat to the guy, and they just dominate you know, one-on-one and won't let go. The poor guy can't get away. That is a form of rudeness, believe it or not. Take your turn. Don't be greedy. We shall see, but poor old Jim is so polite, he just puts up with it. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Bye for now.